Well, welcome viewers. We're in When Privacy Stopped Feeling Private, episode 6, 13 years of collision. 13 years since 2013 of collision. A single incident creates a reaction. Repeated incidents create adaptation. 13 years of unresolved collision creates something else entirely. Accumulation of uncertainty, accumulation of vigilance, accumulation of distrust, accumulation of psychological burden. And this is where the conversation changes. The question's no longer whether co-governance between biology and identity exists. That's established at the expense of biological women that have gone in to try and see what's going on. The question is what 13 years of co-governance has done to the women expected to live inside it. Viewers and listeners, the greatest misunderstanding surrounding the 2013 framework is that people imagine conflict as a series of isolated events. A court case here, a policy dispute there, a sporting controversy, a refuge controversy, a prison controversy, a language controversy. Viewed individually, each appears manageable. Viewed collectively across 13 years, a different picture emerges. A chronic serial collision. And chronic collisions change people. A nervous system does not measure legal theory. It measures exposure, uncertainty, threat, predictability, trust. For generations, female boundaries removed uncertainty. The laws removed uncertainty. And the woman entered the space, the boundary carried the burden, the protection performed its function, and the environment settled. But co-governance, the 2013 amendments to the sex discrimination laws, altered that relationship. Not overnight. The laws changed overnight, but gradually things got worse. The women began carrying questions that the boundaries previously answered automatically. Will the institution defend the boundary? Will the category remain stable? Will objection create consequences? Will privacy remain privacy? Will repetition have a consequence? Well, repetition matters because repetition changes behavior. The first challenge creates surprise. The 10th challenge creates concern. The 100th challenge creates adaptation. And this is where trauma pattern mechanisms begin intensifying. Hypervigilance becomes habitual. Boundary sensitivity becomes habitual. Anticipatory threat assessment becomes habitual. Institutional distrust becomes habitual. And the biological body begins preparing for future conflict before future conflict arrives. The collision becomes internalized. And what began as governance conflict, who has superiority here, slowly becomes nervous system burden. The woman no longer simply uses the protection. She monitors the protection. She defends the protection. She questions the protection. She goes to war for the protection. And that's the hidden cost of prolonged collision. The burden never completely leaves, because the contradiction never completely leaves. Biology continues signaling. Identity continues claiming authority. the identity group. The category continues carrying both, and the woman continues carrying the consequence. The defining issue, viewers, in my closing statement for this lesson is no longer whether the collision exists. The collision has existed for 13 years. The defining issue is cumulative exposure, a cumulative exposure. And what happens when a woman spends years living inside a category that no longer feels settled, no longer feels safe? What happens when privacy becomes conditional for long enough that vigilance begins feeling normal? What happens when institutions repeatedly assure protection while the woman increasingly feels responsible for protecting herself? Eventually, the collision stops feeling political. It feels legal. It stops feeling legal, I should say. It stops feeling legal because there is no legal protections. It starts feeling personal. And that's where the deepest consequences begin, personally at home. When you're on the end of it, where nobody else sees, where nobody else comes to help, when you're there alone. See you in the next episode.